voice. We are live. Peace and
Hello,
blessings,
hello.
everybody. Hello, hello. You are tuned in to Shifting Paradigms with B. Michael. I'm your host here at KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom Radio at 4510 East Linwood Boulevard. We do have a special guest in our show, and we're going to get to her very briefly. But I just want to go over some things and just always thank Baba G for holding it down and keeping it up on the soundboard here at KUAW. Always doing this thing. Shifting Paradigms, we're all about stimulating critical thought in order to realistically redefine our narrative and positively reshape our reality through dialogue with self-determination. And today we're going to be talking about energy paradigmatics. We have a special guest on the show. Her name is Alex Villalobos McAnderson. So, lady, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alex Villalobos McAnderson. I am a Reiki master teacher and also owner of Villalobos Vitality. So I kind of help, my company helps bridge the gap between spirituality and corporate. So, big bridge.
Big bridge, huge bridge, almost like impossible. We're going to be having a great dynamic conversation. Before we begin, we always have a dedication and a perspective that we want to, definitely frame the show by. And I've asked Alex to go ahead and share who she would like to dedicate the show to and provide us with a quote or something that really captures what inspires her from the individual that she has chosen.
Yeah, so I actually will be dedicating this to my Reiki master teacher, which is Christy Marsh. She's an amazing healer in Kansas City, and she's kind of the person that paved the way for me to do what I do. So that goes, to her. I'm trying to think. She has so many amazing quotes. But I think the one most recent that really calls to me is, not necessarily caring about what other people think, like caring about who you are and letting everybody else worry. It doesn't matter what everyone else's projection of you as long as you know who you are. So, and I'll have to look up the actual quote later because she said it, much more eloquently.
Yes, yeah, no doubt.
But yes, shout out to Christy Marsh and the Wolfpack.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So getting right into it, like your journey, like what led you into founding and carrying forth the mission of Villalobos Vitality? Like what's your journey like on that level?
So it was kicking and screaming because I did not want to own my own business. I did not want to do this. I was very comfortable in a very cushy corporate job. But now, like looking back, it's crazy how there's been a couple different forks in the road, and I always chose the other way. And until finally, what happened is my body started breaking down from all of the stress. I have some really funny pictures where I look like a catfish because I would break out in hives. My lips would blow up really big. They'd look like really bad, like lip jobs. I'd have hives in my eyes. I couldn't go anywhere. I was just miserable. And so that kind of started the journey into wellness about 7 years ago, where I tried to go to the doctor. They didn't know what it was, and they did testing and when they can't put a name on what you have, then they just say you have some type of autoimmune disease. Right. So then that got me started with wellness, right? Taking care of my body, understanding and it's holistic wellness, where it's not just what I eat, but it's, I had to start going to therapy. I had to start doing acupuncture, start doing like healing my mind, body, and spirit, not just my physical body. So that kind of started 7 years ago. And then, but I was still in my corporate job. And then finally when Reiki came into my life, it was really to create this balance because I was very masculine energy at work, like gung-ho, aggressive, let's do this. And so Reiki allowed me to be a little bit more balanced and bring that feminine aspect and be nurturing and be kind and be flexible. But I never wanted to do this as a business. Like I had my amazing job and this was just kind of on the side to bring me balance. And then after I got my Reiki masters, it was that fork in the road again. And it's like, all these things that you're talking about now and facing your fear, facing your wolf, like, are you finally going to go right instead of left? And I finally surrendered to starting my own business. And yeah, it's been,
Powerful.
yeah.
That's powerful. So getting into this wellness journey and really dealing with, you know, your transition from not being well to being well, and you talked about, you know, some of your steps that you took in terms of dealing with the spirit, mind, body. Were you more inclined to using naturopathic and holistic remedies as opposed to more allopathic and traditional medical, you know?
So I tried traditional first.
Okay.
Definitely tried traditional.
Okay.
And that's when they did all the testing, the allergy testing, the nerve testing.
Wow.
I was on like 7 different types of
Wow.
medications. And then when I really started doing my research and noticing that the side effects were almost as bad as the actual things that I was treating, well, then I was introduced to Your Wellness Connection and Dr. Robin. And she's kind of like the one that was like, okay, let's try this other way.
Okay.
Let's try this natural way. And that's what really started to open everything when, you know, like, let's look at the medicines that you're on and what are the side effects. And when it really came to stress management and taking care of my spirit and releasing, there was a lot of stress and a lot of things for me to release. And that's what really started, where I started to feel better.
So stress relief, like a lot of people may not know how to do, like just personal stress relief, you know, like what measures and practices were you doing to really get that to a place where you were like just feeling the stress just come off you?
So I started doing yoga. I started doing acupuncture, and I started going to therapy, which, you know, for me being a minority, you know, you don't go talk to, you don't go and pay people to talk about your business.
Right.
So, but that helped to have someone that wasn't, you know, biased, and someone that wasn't judging, to have that person just to share everything that was going on at that point in time. And there was a lot of family stuff going on, and I didn't realize that all of that stuff I was carrying with me. I didn't really understand the energy behind it at that time. You know, I would just put on more and more stress on my plate, but my mind would be like, you're good, right? And because I have always had that mentality of like, we're gonna power through this, then in my mind I'm like, I got this, you're not stressed. And you just keep telling yourself you're not stressed, not knowing that inside you're just, your mind's getting accustomed to this level of stress, but you're that leaky faucet. So you're still dropping all of that cortisol, and you're still dropping all of those stress hormones inside of your body. So that's what's creating all those hives, that's what's creating all that havoc inside. But my mind's still like, no, you're good, you could still keep going.
Wow.
Until finally it didn't, you know?
Yeah. So like, what was your light bulb moment? Like what was like, this is the path, like this is how I know I'm going into this particular lifestyle first and foremost, and then wanting to share the information? What was your light bulb?
So we went to San Diego to do our Reiki Masters, and we did this very powerful meditation. We did some cacao, which cacao is just raw chocolate. So, but it's a very beautiful, all plants have, you know, spirits. And so it's a very hard opener. And I just remember laying down and almost having a conversation with my higher self. And seeing like, what is it that you like, that fork in the road. And I remember having this conversation, and it was very analytical because I was very much, I still kind of am a numbers person, right? So they're like, okay, let's talk about this your way. Let's do some math. Okay, you want to do Reiki now. How many hours is that? You want to do another corporate job that's 40 plus hours a week. You love to volunteer. How many hours is that? And you also want to be an amazing mom and wife. So
how are you going to balance all
that? So it was just like the numbers didn't even make sense. Like, you only have 24 hours in a day. So what are you willing to give up to be better? And so I was like, okay, the safety of the steady corporate job is what I need to give up. That, you know, I need to take that jump. I need to take that leap. And so they always say, like, you take that jump and then the net appears. But what I compare it to, it's more like, okay, I'm supposed to take this jump, but you look down and there is no net, and there's rocks down there.
Sharp rocks,
right? But it's like, when you finally do, you know, surrender and like take that jump, then you realize that it doesn't even matter that there's a net, because then you remember that you have wings and you can fly and you're free, and none of that even matters, right? So yes.
How was your support system in that particular period?
I have to give a major shout out to my husband, because he is so amazing and supportive, right? Because imagine your wife coming from her job and saying, I'm quitting my job. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna quit this job. And then coming back and being like, and I'm gonna be a healer. And he's like, okay, I support you. But it was really beautiful because anytime that there's something, anytime that there's what we consider a problem, there's always a solution within that problem. There's always, instead of thinking like, wow, I can't believe she's gonna do this, she's gonna put our family through this, he actually took the time to look like, what is the lesson in this? What is the lesson in this for me?
Right.
And so, yeah,
that's powerful.
He's amazing.
That's powerful. So did he notice, I'm sure he did, but his observation of your transformation, like what was some of the things that he was observing that were different from you when you were with the corporate world to now you're transitioning to, you know, a new life?
I think one of the things would be like how uptight I was, and like I was always wound up pretty tight. And just the normal, I mean, I was like that wife that was like, what time are you coming back? Oh, you're gonna have fun with your friends? Oh, okay. Like, just I was dependent on him for my happiness. And when I came on this path, I realized that I need to make myself happy. And once we make ourselves happy, then it's when we come together, it's pure bliss, right? We're not dependent on one another. We're true partners. So I think that's one of the things that he started to notice. And even like things with breath, right? I remember having the conversation where even breathing differently. Like now I will randomly be like, and I'll do this here, so I'll apologize. Sometimes I'll just like take a deep breath, right? Where before, when I did that, it was because I was annoyed or something. I'd be like,
wow. Right.
And I remember sitting in the car one time and I took a deep breath and he's like, what? And I was like, no, I'm just taking a deep breath. And he was like, okay, I need to rewire that in my own brain because I used to mean something else back in the day. Now I know you're just grounding. Yes.
Right. That's powerful.
Yes.
That's powerful. You all are listening again to Shifting Paradigms here with B. Michael and Alex Villalobos McAnderson. And we do have a call-in number too. If anybody has any questions for Alex or myself, our number is 816-599-6893. So if there are any questions you have for Alex or myself, please feel free to call in. You can also drop a comment on Facebook, and we'll do our best to respond to your comment. And so you brought up something that I found very interesting, and of course it is pervasive in the community of people of color, and that is the stigma of therapy, right? And it does present something as relates to the further suppression of our mental health, well, just our whole, just our whole being. But what steps did you take to get over that? And then what can you suggest for others to break through that particular stigma, to get to a place where we feel that is a viable service to help in our healing process?
Yeah. I mean, it got to the point where I was so desperate. Like my, say Dr. Robin, she could have been like, you need to go outside and like smear mud on your face. I would have done it. So she was like, this is what you need to do. This is what you're doing for spiritual. This is what you're doing for your mechanical, your chemical, and your psychospiritual. Wow. And so this is what you need to do. And I mean, like by that point, I was so desperate and I was so miserable that I would have tried anything. So that was my first time with being in therapy. And when you start therapy, like your first 5 appointments, you're basically just crying. You're basically just releasing, and you're bringing things up that you're even afraid to say out loud. And so you're just crying and crying, but then afterwards you feel so much lighter, right? Without this person even telling you what you need to fix, or even, without judgment, you just feel lighter. Purging. And so, yeah, I mean, I encourage everyone to go out and seek, I mean, just go to one appointment and see how you feel. Go with an open mind. Right. And see how you feel afterwards.
So what if someone may not have like the resources or the healthcare insurance to go and see a medical professional in that field? Are there any other alternatives that you can think of that would be like, commensurate with that particular service?
Yeah, I think that any time that you want to release is setting the intention, like meditation, yoga, those type of things, but where you're physically like releasing energy, right? Because that's what happens. We hold on to it. So we always say emotions kind of are so connected to our subconscious mind, and so they're always happening, and they're these huge tidal waves, and we have no control over them. But as you start to kind of have a practice, and whether that practice is prayer, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation, whether it's Reiki, but what are you doing to be in that stillness? What are you doing to be able to release? And once you do that, then those waves become smaller, and then you're not like a slave to your emotions. Then you acknowledge them, then you process them. Why am I feeling this? You honor it and you release it instead of like holding tight to it. So the human emotion should only last 90 seconds. So that's technically you're supposed to, you could breathe through it, right? You do something that you cut me off, right? I should be able to breathe through it and keep going. But what happens after the 90 seconds, we start to build that story, and we start to, anything that we didn't release, that's kind of in that back closet that we just shoved there, comes out, right? So like the people that have road rage, I mean, it's because so much is coming up. If some, you know, so those are the people I feel like sometimes I have a little bit more grace, because I'm like, whoa, you have a lot. you got a really packed closet there. So yeah, it's I mean, there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of resources, but yeah, it's just setting the intention that you want to release. And sometimes when you set the intention, then however you need to release it, the path will show its way to you.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, you know, one thing that all this relates to is energy, and that's the name of this show, Energy Paradigmatics. What have you encountered? How have you encountered energy? What is energy to you, and how do you go about harnessing it and using it for your good?
Okay, so we always say that, you know, our bodies are actually 99.9999999% energy. And so when you look inside an atom, there's a lot of, you know, empty space. And so, but because we see physical, like it's hard for us to really fathom that. But for me, energy, it's being able to, because for a long time I would use my own personal energy, so I was exhausted, right? I was volunteering, I was giving so much of myself, but it was my personal energy, where now with Reiki I'm able to understand, let me pull the abundance of the energy around me and be able to use that instead of my own personal energy. And then I think everybody, you know, everybody has experienced energy. There's been a place, a time where you stepped into a room and you're like, ooh, it feels amazing in here, or like, ooh, it feels not so amazing in here,
it's
right?
A little heavy.
Yeah, that's what that is. There's times you've come across people that maybe like you feel something inside where it's like, okay, let me take a step back. That's all energy, you know? So what I've noticed for me is, as I vibrate higher and set, you know, work on myself, then I start to attract situations and people and opportunities that are of the same level. And so, I mean, I've had amazing opportunities to do great things like this show, where it's just, we're at the same vibration, you know? So
yeah.
Did I answer your
question? No, that's a great response. Because I mean, and that's something that, you know, we should be more sensitive to. I believe, well, I don't believe, everything is energy. You know, like even this desk that we're sitting at has a vibratory level, but we just don't see it. And a lot of times we will receive that vibe, so to speak, but we won't heed it. We won't pay attention to it. And we just continue going like, you know, okay, well, you got the flag, but now you don't want to, you know, heed what that flag was about. Right. And so energy is very important to discern. And I just ask because I know for me, energy I also compare to spirit. Right. And there's an intelligence, there is a disposition behind energy that we have to recognize and discern and be wise on how to engage it. Because some energy we should engage, some energy we really, like you just said, we got to step back sometimes, you know. And I think when we really are able to make that distinction, it allows for our energy to remain intact and whole, because, you know, there's parasitic or vampiric energy that's out there, you know. And so when we encounter that, like, what do we do?
Well, in the Reiki world, we shield, right? We shield, we ask for there almost to be like a shield around us of white light. So then, because there are people, especially if you're very high vibrational, if you are shining your light, then it's going to attract a lot of people to it, right? We know those people that after we get off the phone with them, we're just like drained,
Right.
right?
Right.
So then, you do things like visualizing that white light and just saying like my energy belongs to me and setting those boundaries.
Definitely.
And then as you start to realize these things, and you kind of have this natural flow of letting go. Like today is a new moon, so new moon is about new beginnings, and you start to let go of people, situations, relationships, jobs that no longer serve you. So I think we become stagnant because
Right.
we're afraid, because of fear. We're even if we're not happy, we're comfortable with that unhappiness instead of trying something new.
Just
Where
settle.
where life is supposed to be these cycles, right? If you finally tell yourself like, I'm never going to stop learning.
Right.
It's never going to stop. It's always going to be a cycle. Then you grow, and you're like, okay, this is just part of the process. This is just part of the path.
Right.
So you no longer like hold on to things so tightly. And I think that was a hard concept for me as a minority and being an immigrant. Like, the scarcity mindset was one of the things I really had to let go of, because everything, like, you hoard, you keep, you protect, you don't know when the next time that you're gonna get this, so you hold on to it tight. So then you're limited to what you're holding instead of letting go and letting it flow and come back to you.
Right. You know, you in our last encounter on shout out to Daniel Smith.
Yes,
and,
happy birthday.
It is his birthday, right?
Yes.
That's funny. That's my guy. And we were talking just about a lot of the mind, and you were really getting into like the limbic system and the neocortex, like breaking all that down. Like, what drew you to that? And then, because this is going to come back too, because this is going to relate to my next question as relates to where we are today. But like, was that something that you had previous knowledge of prior to? Or is it something that, just that you were inspired to learn about and understanding the functionality of your entire your essence?
Yeah, I'm just a nerd.
Okay.
And I like it, and like I said, I'm a numbers person, and I'm very left brain. So spirituality and energy are things that I feel, but I also want to meet people where they're at. So I can't come in and talk to you about Reiki. I need to come and talk to you about the left brain. Let's talk about, the different parts of the brain. Let's talk about the amygdala, and let's talk about like the stress hormones and what it's doing to your body. So sometimes you really have to meet people where they're at. Sometimes it's through the left brain, and sometimes it's through the right. And I just want to make sure that I'm meeting both.
That's powerful, because a lot of people don't really have that spiritual discernment. So bringing it to them empirically and showing how it correlates physiologically is important.
And that's where the corporate side came in, right? That's where, like, now that I look big picture, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why I had that job and worked with kids. Oh my goodness, that's why I was in finance and I was in a very corporate setting. Now it's to understand, and all those things, all those pieces of the puzzle are working together. So if we look at life, and there's a piece here and a piece there and a piece there, and really life is about pulling the different pieces together to see the big picture, then you understand that there is no right and wrong way of doing things, that everything has a reason, and that there's always lessons with everything that you do. Like, Nelson Mandela is probably my favorite quote, where it's like, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And I think that that's true. Like, if you look at life as something that you have to like struggle through and like just like, I'm so miserable, that's going to be your filter. That's what's going to be your how you see life, right? Where it's like, now I want to learn all of my lessons through love, through gratitude, and through happiness. So you get to decide how you live your life, which comes back to the power piece, right? You're a powerful being, and you get to create this life that you want, where most of us want to stay in that victim mentality and like, nope, life is happening to me. Like, I have, especially with trauma, that's sometimes a hard thing for trauma survivors to understand, that they can overcome that, and that they're so much more than their trauma.
Yeah, because trauma, it can have genetic alterations on us.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary. Are you familiar with Dr. Joy DeGroy? I forgot her last name, but LaFair, I think is her last name. She talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Have you ever heard of her? But she talks about how trauma has generational effects, right? And it just passes down, based on that trauma that we experience, especially if it's untreated. If it's not treated and we're not seeking a healing process, it just continues to perpetuate. And our behaviors just continue.
Yeah, it's epigenetics.
Yeah,
You know, they've
definitely.
done all kinds of different studies. There was one, I forget, I don't quote me on this, but where they had, you know, mice and they sprayed like cherry blossom scent, and then they used to shock them. And like 5 generations later, and once they would shock the mice, they would defecate themselves.
Wow.
And 5 generations later, those mice, they would just spray the cherry blossom scent again, and those mice used to defecate themselves. And it's 5 generations. So a lot, when you're really talking about, like, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and all of the things that are coming on, I always tell people, like, you don't understand, this isn't just their trauma that they're dealing with right now. This isn't just about George Floyd. Like, this is generations of trauma that is coming up to be cleared. And it's our place to hold space and allow them to release however way they need to release it. And so, yeah.
And that was the segue that I was going to get to it, because I mean, even when we're dealing with this coronavirus and the fear that is being induced on society, you talked about, you know, just the historical conditions of racism, you know, and the predictive programming on both sides of the aisle that have taken place, and everyone who has been a victim and everyone who's been a perpetrator of that institution. Like how can we heal, and how can we address this? You know, is what taking place now, do you see that as a viable method of going through healing? You know, what do you see personally as some things? Well, one, what are some of the effects, as you talked about, and then what are some of the remedies that we could take to get to a better place?
So I think it's I mean, at the end game is to come together, because you said it correctly, both sides are healing, right? So you have white people also being very uncomfortable, where they have to also heal and kind of like pull up their stuff and be like, okay, where was this seed planted? And sometimes it's the root is very, very deep, and they don't even know that it's there. So commending those people that are taking the time to pull those roots out and to really be uncomfortable and say, yes, I do have white privilege. And I think that I've noticed a shift where a lot of, you know, like the white allies before, it was very temporary and they were alarmed, and then that was it. But now I see, you know, a lot of my friends that are white, like they're out there, and they are the ones that are, now that it's kind of died down a little bit, they're the ones that are still keeping that movement going, and they're like, no, it's still not okay, it's still not okay. So that's the big difference that I see this time. So it's having grace for one another, knowing that everyone is healing, you know, and honoring in the way that they're doing it. So that's the biggest thing, is non-judgment. I think it's a really hard piece for us, because you start to say, like, I'm hurting more, like my trauma is heavier than your trauma, when everyone's has their own experience, and who am I to judge you for what you're dealing with, and vice versa.
Bob Marley said every man's burden is the heaviest. That's powerful.
To them, yes.
That's powerful. Yeah. We're going to take a brief break. It is about break time. Again, you're tuned in to Shifting Paradigms. We're talking about energy paradigmatics with Alex Villalobos McAnderson, and we will come back shortly and continue this conversation. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll be right back. We are back. I like blowing in the microphone to make sure it's working. We're here live with Alex Villalobos McAnderson with Villalobos Vitality, talking about energy paradigmatics. And before we went off the air for a brief break, we were talking just about the current climate in the United States, really in the world. This is a global phenomenon,
Absolutely.
really, and that's what's been happening. And what type of transformations and healing do you see taking process? And you talked about, just owning up to, that past, giving people the space to grow, the space to heal, not being judgmental. But where do you see this heading?
I think that a lot of things are coming up. I think as a humanity, we're shifting to this new earth. And so it's like the earth is almost all those things that we talk about in therapy and Reiki, like all of those emotions are bubbling up for us to clear. And when they're bubbling up, that's the part that's really uncomfortable. And there's always like a type of catalyst where it's like that release, so it's like how we're choosing to release. So I think there's a lot of things that are going on right now. But I think it's all part of kind of that clearing for us to be able to start new, is that reset button. Except some people are having it a lot easier and are like, all right, I'm ready, let's go. And some people are like, struggling.
Right. So using Reiki as like an anecdote on addressing this healing process, like what steps would you suggest for us to take to get to a place? And just describe Reiki too, because some people may be familiar with it, some people may not. So describing Reiki, and then what steps should we take to go about clearing our energy, healing ourselves to get to a better place?
So Reiki is really working. We believe that you have multiple bodies. You have your physical body, you have your emotional body, you have your energetic body. And so what we do is we bring all bodies together and we start to clear. So what happens is you have an emotion or a trauma, and if you don't clear it, it moves from your emotional body to your energetic body, and then it kind of lingers in the energetic body 5 to 7 years, and then it enters your physical body. So when it enters your physical body, it can be some type of dis-ease. Right? So it's just unprocessed emotions and trauma. So when I have someone on my table, I'm working on them, and it's really about them releasing and honoring. Sometimes they cry, sometimes they scream, sometimes their stomach is gurgling and they have the buffalo guts, whatever happens, but they need to just guts. they just gotta let it out, you know. And so in honoring what that is, and sometimes there's days in my car where I know that I just need to release something, and I'll ugly cry, or I'll howl, or I'll scream, where people think I'm crazy. But we care so much about what other people think. We want to be like polished the whole time, where we don't have that release, because that release is that uncomfortableness, like that. It's kind of like when we go back to like our caveman, and some people aren't comfortable with that. So definitely.
So my guy Yehoiakim Shaliach Shel Yahoshua says energy transfer via word sound could touch on the positive and negative aspects thereof. And words and sounds are powerful.
Vibrations. I always tell people, like, your voice is so important. So when we're talking about the different chakras, we open up the heart, and then the heart has messages. And if you don't honor those messages, you don't allow them to come out, it creates this blockage in like your throat chakra, right? And I always tell people, like, when you talk to people with an open heart, it's less about the words that you're saying, and it's more about the energy and the vibration behind it. Because if you listen to my meditations, like when I'm like in it, like my accent kicks in, I mumble over words, I may say the wrong word, but I know that what they're feeling is more important than the words that are coming out of my mouth. But I'm also cognizant of the things that are coming out of my mouth. And we touched on that last time, and how important the words I am. So when you have a feeling, there's something that maybe not something positive, so you say, I'm feeling exhausted, I'm feeling overwhelmed, so then your body knows that this is just something that it's going to transition through. This is temporary. Where when you say I am, that's something that you're owning. So I am powerful, I am healthy, I am kind.
Affirmations.
Yes, affirmations
Those
are
are
so
powerful.
important. Yes.
Transformative, and
Yeah.
definitely, life and death are in our mouths, and we have to really speak life. And that was one of the big reasons that I did come about, um, shifting paradigms, because even the words we speak, even like you think about what people say, oh, he killed that, and they talk about it's something good, but really that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we definitely got to rewire, and we were just talking about that a little earlier before the show. Rewiring our thinking process and changing our paradigms, because life is only going to get life, and that's the only way we can get to life. So yeah, awesome. So speaking of life, I know that you have a lot of things going on, with Villalobos Vitality.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of your previous projects that you've done, some of the more outstanding, impactful experiences that you've had with it, and then we'll talk about the projection and where you're going.
Yeah, so something that kind of comes to mind is so we do that wolf pack that I mentioned. It's a bunch of Reiki sisters, so a big shout out to my wolf pack. So within that, we have we all participate with Jill's Hope, which is we help women that are fighting cancer. And I remember we did like a healing circle with a bunch of Reiki masters volunteer to just go and help uplift them. So just things like that. I had to let go of. I had a lesson early on in this process of ego, right? To me, where it was like, what is a successful event, and how many people are going to be there?
Wow,
and how many people are showing up? Like, I had to let go of that, where now I know that if I sign up for something that calls to me, I'm listening to my intuition. And whether it's 2 people, whether it's 500 people, that there's someone or 10 people that need to hear what I'm saying, where I need to plant that seed, or I need to help. So it's no longer about what a normal person or a normal business would consider successful, but it's what I consider success. And when I leave and I feel like I gave hope or reminded someone of how powerful they are and kind of guided them back to themselves, that to me is like a successful event. But there's a lot of amazing things coming up. I recently partnered up with the Elms. So we're going to have a mini retreat coming up on September 19th. And that is, none of us can really leave the state. So it's nice that you can feel like you're leaving and only being an hour away. So that's going to be for like women empowerment. I also have my Reiki 1 class coming up on August 2nd. And this is for people that are really want to learn more about self-healing. Reiki 1 for me was the most transformational class, because I had an amazing teacher, and she guided me back to myself. And after Reiki 1, where I was like, whoa, I am a powerful being, I am not a victim of my life, I started to analyze all those limiting beliefs, the things that I've carried from being an immigrant, the things that I've carried from like not finishing college. Like, there were so many things that I was carrying that were traumatic to me, that I finally started to heal myself through that process. So that's coming up on August 2nd. And I'm trying to think. I'm sure I'm always forgetting something. Yeah.
Are you working with Nectar? I thought I saw you had some kind of sponsorship. Are you working with them? You had something on social media
With
Nectar? I must be just reading it, so
maybe it's on the DL and it's not official yet.
Right. But definitely. Wow, it's so much. Okay, so talking about, let's go back to these energetic bodies, and I think that's deep. The emotional body, the physical body, the energy body. Like how can we experience these things? Like what tangible experiences can we go through to recognize these
and we've all had those I think we've had those moments, right? Like, there's times where we're like, I call it like in this zone, or like bliss, where things are just aligning. And for some people it's like, when they're on the basketball court, or when they're working out, but they just have this moment of extreme clarity when everything's like like together. So I feel like we've all experienced it, but we're not used to being in that state of wholeness and joy. So then we snap out of it really quick, because they're like, oh, this isn't normal, and we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So the more for me, it's meditation. So the more that I am connected to like my higher self, to God, then the more like it just charges me up. It's like having those downloads, right? Like you have to almost like say, if you think of your body as like an iPhone or whatever, like your spirit almost needs to leave for a moment so that you can get all those downloads, and whatever needs to get fixed gets fixed, and then when you come back down, you're coming into a new body and with all the things upgraded, right? And if we know, if you don't keep updating your phone, it's not going to be
functional.
Yeah, exactly. And I notice that now, like when I don't meditate, when I don't take time for that stillness, when I don't take that time for myself, I'm definitely not. I'm powering through, like, but it's not optimal at all.
I get that. I get that. And it's so deep you say that. I've always, not always, but I've come to the understanding that the body is like the most advanced technology in creation. And so the more we can understand how it works and how to take care of it, the more optimal our functionality will be. And I do agree, meditation is an important thing, you know, rest, the right diet, you know, drinking water, which I can definitely improve just my water intake. But all those things play an essential. Exercise, you know, get your sunlight, your vitamin D, all your good supplements. That all contributes to the higher functioning of your spirit, your mind, and your body. And I think that's something, particularly in our society, that we need to focus on more. Because we were just saying this a little while ago, we're in a materialist society where everything is just surface and material. We value things and we use people in this society. So it's getting back to that more humanistic, you know, thrust, and not just materialistic, you know, and then getting into that higher evolution of our consciousness. You know, I'm of the mind to ask you the question, where are we going from here? Like, we are, in my eyes, I'm seeing a celestial humanity come about, right? But we have to elevate our vibration. So that being the case, how do you go about, besides meditation, what tactics do you use to elevate your vibration and to increase your consciousness?
So it's really whatever calls to me. Like sometimes I just put on some salsa music and I'll dance with my husband. Like it's whatever's gonna bring me into that state of joy, into that state of gratitude, right? Because those are very high vibrational emotions. So what's gonna snap me out of the funk that I'm feeling? You know, when I tell people something like, put on your favorite song and like shake your bottom, like I'm proud of myself for not cursing there, but whatever you need to do, being out in nature, that's another thing that I think it's underutilized. When you're natural, like outside of nature, you get like those like you just get connected and tapped into that energy. You feel grounded, you feel supported, and it's starting to understand that our inner world is just as important as our outer world, right? So whatever journey is going to allow you to go inward, and like I said, whether that's being out in nature, whether that's reading an amazing book and being still, meditation, yoga, you know, working out, whatever's going to make you be still, be present in the moment, and go inward.
Definitely. One of the things I like to do with my fiance, when we go running, a lot of times when we get done, we'll cool down and stretch and stuff, but we'll take our shoes off and we'll ground.
Yes.
Yeah, and just connect into the energy of the earth and just really try to feel the sensation of the pulsations of earth, because you know, we share a lot of the makeup of this particular planet. You know, our auras, you know, and just cleansing that. We got a call.
Whoop whoop.
But I don't know if he's gonna be able to get it because Baba G stepped out.
We talked about everything happens exactly as it should.
But Carla, we will hopefully get to you. Baba G had to step out. You may have to call back shortly, but we're gonna get to you. So right now you're gonna leave a message.
But I think grounding is so powerful. So everyone, you know, everyone's so into pop culture, and that's one of the shifts that I'm seeing. I think I'm starting to see more movies, more things that are being more open to this other world, right? I remember seeing that cartoon that had Will Smith on it with my kids, and it was talking about like bad guys, and it's like, oh, there is no bad guys. There's just people that are really, really hurt. And because he was hurt, now he's acting in this way, but instead of like punishing him, let's show him love, let's show him grace. And I was like, whoa, this is new for a kid movie.
That's deep.
You know, and like the Zac Efron, like now he has like that where it's like coming to earth or whatever, but he was talking about grounding. He's talking about water. He's talking about you know, how can we help Mother Earth, and he's going to the Amazon and understanding like there's so much medicine around us. So I start to see like there being a shift in the things that are in pop culture that people are starting to watch, that are starting to kind of plant those seeds on like, oh, there's more.
It's more mainstream now. It's becoming more mainstream. The alternative is becoming mainstream. Carl, if you can hear us, you can call back now. Baba G stepped aside for a moment, but we can answer your call now. So please feel free to call back. Please, we want to hear from you. It's all good though, but we're just talking about energy paradigmatics, man. I mean, and there's so much stuff that is unfolding right now, and you're just seeing it. If you're paying attention and your eyes are open, you're seeing this transition of consciousness take place, you know, and then you're also seeing that lower vibration. But what I'm seeing is that everything is becoming as it is intended to, because there will be a separation from those who are on that lower vibration, you know, and it's unfortunate as it is, but when you look at nature, the dead always fall off, whether it be a seasonal change or whether it just be something that is not producing life. And it just withers away. You know, it's unfortunate that humanity will have to go through that process, but we're just a reflection of nature, and we got to understand our connection to that. And this is just something that
we're at that forks in the road. I think right now there's like the new earth and the people that are like, okay, ready, and then there's the people that are really drowning right now in all of that fear and all of that, you know, and you see how the big difference in people's experiences right now. The people that are like, okay, we're ready, what's coming, and the people that are just like struggling and stuck. And
it's unfortunate. I mean, but this goes everything from childbirth to just, you know, you name it. This is just what is taking place in creation right now, as creation is evolving itself, and you're seeing this new humanity come forth, and we have to be prepared for this transition. So, you know, shifting paradigms is all about, you know, really putting people in a mindset to accept this change that's taking place, you know, and it's a challenge, and we're all going through that. I'm going through a place right now where I'm grieving some of my transformation and dealing with, you know, shedding that dead aspect of myself. And it's a mourning, you know, it really is. There's a caller. But you know, just accepting this transition, it's a challenge at times, because you know that you're gonna have to make this change.
You have to honor it, right?
Definitely.
And so transition's always hard.
We do have a caller, so we're gonna take this call. I'm excited.
Let's see.
Caller, can you hear us? Just a second. Caller.
Hello. Hi, it's me. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Is this
Hi,
Bianca?
how are you? Hi, Alex. How are you?
This is one of my Reiki sisters, and she is in Arizona. So thank you for tuning in.
I've been listening. I'm very inspired. I felt called to call in because I have a question for you, and I know I've been wanting to connect with you, so I was like, what better outlet than this?
What's your question?
Can I go ahead and ask it?
Yeah, you're live.
Sure. Okay. Oh, amazing. Okay, so what advice do you give for young entrepreneurs that are just starting on their spiritual path? As you know, I am continuing to step into my path. I keep fluctuating, going back and forth of like committing to it and then stepping back and being like, oh, I'm scared, like kind of dipping my toe in. So I really look up to you and all that you've created with your life, and seeing like how successful you've been with your journey. And I guess what advice would you give to people that are like me, that are still kind of starting to cultivate that side?
So I would say trust yourself and trust your instincts, right? There's going to be some things, especially like in this realm, that may not make sense to your logical mind. Like, okay, I only have $500 in this marketing plan that feels right in my gut. It's $500, but it's, business says not to invest 100% or whatever. But I've taken some chances like that because I'm trusting that what I'm doing is for a higher purpose and that I'm being guided in a higher way. So I do some things that may not make sense from like the business aspect of it, and sometimes I sit with business coaches and they're like, hey, but you're teaching other people to do what you're doing. Isn't that saturating the market? Like, isn't that bad for your business? I'm like, right, but what I'm doing is so much higher than business, and it's going to come to me in another way, right? So I think for you, it's really like trusting yourself, trusting that you can do it, remembering how absolutely amazing and powerful you are, and just going for it. Because I think once you take that step towards it, it takes 2 steps towards you. So trust yourself.
Amazing. Thank you. I really sincerely needed to hear that. You're like my big sister, so I really appreciate you and I love you.
I love you too.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you for calling in. On that note too, how important are certifications as relates to doing entrepreneurial business in this particular field?
I think for people, as you're working on them, they definitely want somebody that's certified. But there are people out there that have, what we tell people is we all have these gifts, right? So there's nothing that I can't do. Like I know that I have the tools and I know how to do them, but there's nothing that I have that you don't have yourself.
Right.
So I always tell my clients, like, I don't want to see you after a year. Like after a year, I should have given you enough tools for you to be able to maneuver through this life yourself, because you don't want to you still don't want to be dependent on me. But I think certifications, they hold you accountable in your practice and also in the path. Like I knew between Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, I was working on myself. And Reiki 2 is when you could start working on other people. And if I wouldn't have taken that time for me to work on myself and let go of those limiting beliefs, then I'm working on people without clearing my stuff first, right? And I think sometimes that happens when people are just rushing, because there's stuff now where it's like, you can go get certified for $29.99, and I'm just like, it's different. It's different when you come and when we have our workshops, like it's very sacred, and we're really sharing what we want from this, and we almost become a tribe, right? So we hold each other accountable and we hold each other up. And that's what the experience of this healing is. And also having that relationship with your teacher and your mentor. Like I said, with Christy, like she was such a crucial part of like challenging me, and also like reminding me that you are the one you're doing the work. And I wouldn't have been able to grow without that.
Definitely. And I think of just completing the process.
Yes.
That's important. You got to go through the cycle to get the experience,
Right.
So that's a great pointer there. 'Cause I'm still trying to get my little fledgling business off the ground, and there's some things I got to do to put it into place. And so that's encouraging for me as well to hear that type of insight and encouragement.
Yeah.
That's great.
So whatever you set your attention to, energy follows, right? So if you're putting that energy in your business or in your growth, or that's you're feeding that. So Definitely. Wow. This has been an intense show. I really appreciate it. It has. It's been 5 minutes left.
So how can people get in contact with Alex Villalobos McAnderson?
You can look at my website. So www.villalobosvitality.com. And you can reach out that way. You can set up appointments there. My email is there. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is also Villalobos Vitality. Through COVID, I've been doing a lot of free guided meditations to help people. So you can catch me there. And you can also look at all the past meditations on my YouTube channel, which is just Villalobos Vitality as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love connecting with people.
That's great. Any closing thoughts you want to share?
I think when we're talking about grace, having grace with others, but having grace with yourself. Like, this is a time that's never happened before.
Right.
However you're handling it, have grace with yourself. reach out for help. Find your tribe. I think it's also a really important thing. And just really take time for yourself to find that stillness, because it's very uncomfortable at first, but once you go through that process, you peel back those layers, you let go of that trauma and that backpack of BS that you've been carrying, it's a whole nother world.
Definitely. Definitely. Wow. Well, thank you, Alex, for being on the show. This has been dynamic. Awesome. I hope you all, definitely got inspired by this. This has been a very, very insightful show. I want to welcome you all back in 2 weeks. I'm going to have another feature on here. It's going to be via Zoom, though. It's with a Wu-Tang affiliate. His name is Sharon Heaven Razor Smith. He went by Hellraiser before his transformation. And we're going to definitely get into some of his insights and experience. But again, let's just take this moment to just give thanks for Alex here today and her experiences and her insights. So thank you again. But this is B. Michael signing off with Shifting Paradigms here on Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom Radio with the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. Can't forget to shout them out at the W.B. Du Bois Learning Center. So much going on here. Are services back up and running here or not yet?
Not yet. They're doing some virtual, trying to get some virtual tutoring classes out, but there's no students in the building right now. We're still on the COVID protocols.
No doubt.
But we want people to contact the W.B. Du Bois Learning Center to find out about the virtual classes that they are offering. I know she was working on that, so stay in touch. Get your name on the list. Okay,
and this is for elementary and secondary students? Or?
Yes, from 2nd through 12.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. That's great to know.
And the same with our robotics team too. We've got them kind of on hold. We're looking at doing some virtual robotics. We've got a robot that they can actually work online, but we don't have any classes set up for right now. So we're not sure when we're going to start back with the robotics team.
Right. And this institution is a pillar in our community, of course, over 30 years of service, volunteer, all based on volunteer services. So it's just a dynamic institution that we have here in the Kansas City area. But again, this is B. Michael. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Bianca, for your call, for your question. It's been great. And we will see you all in about 2 weeks. Signing off. Peace and blessings. Shalom, shalom.